All right. For most of us who are kind of getting older in age and have thought about and have done all the right things in terms of doing putting money away in your 401k throughout your career, maybe you didn't start at 22, maybe you started a little bit later, but regardless, if you've done it, you've done your catch-up contributions, you're ultimately in a position where you have growing balances, right? And, if you kind of look at what could have happened if you get anywhere, we'll say between 500 and a million, what does that mean in terms of, your ability to leverage that money either for your retirement, for your family, for other reasons, right? Um, and the reason that we talk about this 401k trap, and it also can be extended to an IRA as well, is that, you know, you the money is there, it has grown, it has been put aside, all of that is all positives. But at some point, you got to take it out. And if you don't take it out, the government will require you to start taking it out at age 73. So I wanted to kind of walk through some scenarios, make sure you get this 401k trap and really talk about what that ultimately means. So when we look at, sorry here, I recommend that if you have a balance that you go to the AARP RMD calculator, required minimum distribution calculator. And so let's just take a look at some scenarios, right? Let's say you did very well, uh, or not. I mean, honestly, if you look at the data, the recommendation is to have $1 million in your 401k, right? And let's assume that you're going to keep that money active in the market. And we're going to say you're going to get around 7% interest on that, right? But at age 73, you're going to have to start taking that money out, right? So we're going to just assume that you're going to be 73 in December of this year, and we're going to take a look at what that means. So when you turn 73, sorry about that, you're going to have this balance of $500,000. So in year one, you're going to have to take out $18,000, right? And the most it looks like you're going to be taking out towards, if you lived long enough, but we'll take a look at some of the median ages here. So, it's not atypical for people to live to 85, 90. So look at those numbers, right? You're basically taking out 18,000 and you're going to grow that up to, by the time you're 90 years old, you're going to be withdrawing $53,000, right? And so what does that mean? Well, that means that if you're on Social Security, we've used this number before, 20, and you get $2,500 at full retirement. Starting roughly by the time you're 78, you're going to start paying taxes on your Social Security payments because you have exceeded the limit, right? And I'm glad to kind of go over at some point and show you the calculator for taxes. But so at some point, your Social Security becomes taxable, and it became taxable only because of your 401k or your IRA, right? And so, you're paying taxes on this 26,000, and you could be paying taxes on a growing amount of your Social Security up to 85% of your Social Security. So if I was making $30,000 in Social Security, let's say, for example, I get up to 82, I got $34,000 and I'm paying 34, my taxable income is now $34,000 plus 85% of my 30,000 that I'm getting from Social Security. So, you can kind of do the math on that, and you're going to be paying taxes on about $62,000 a year. I believe at that rate, it's north of 20%. It could be 22,000 or 22%. So, on 60,000, you're paying $14,000 back to the government, right? And so you're not just paying on this amount, which is maybe the $8,000 a year that you would be paying in taxes here, but now your Social Security has bumped you up, right? And so you're dealing with that. Now, what if I I make it to 90, right? I make it to 90, I'm at 53,000, I'm still going to be paying that same tax rate, right? So a lot of people have, done better than this $500,000. And so we're going to look at, the people that have really done well, sorry, have done well with their 401k distributions. If you put in the maximum amount your entire life, it is not unheard of. And based on the last graphic I showed you, um, it is the recommended amount to get to $1 million, right? If you want to have a good retirement, and some people are recommending even more than that, but let's just kind of look at the $1 million number. And some of you may think that's pretty crazy, but it's not unheard of. All right. So in that number, and then I also want to get to add to this analysis, I think we need to look at the tax rate, federal, right? So we're going to come here and take a look at this, and we're going to say, okay, so if I make less than 100 grand, as an individual, I'm going to pay 22%. And if I make more than 100 grand up to 200, I'm going to pay 24%. Right. So the first thing to see is immediately out the gate, if I have $1 million in a 401k, I'm immediately over the limit for my Social Security being taxable immediately, right? And if I get up to 90, like we looked at before, we are looking at taxes on this 107,000, which is going to put us at 24%. So we're going to pay 24,000 roughly back to the US government. And of my 30,000 that I made from Social Security, I'm going to be paying 24% to the US government for that. Right. So I'm basically going to be 85% of that's going to be taxable, which is roughly about $25,000. And so 25% of $25,000 is roughly around 6 grand. So I'm paying about 30K in taxes because of this situation. And you can see that based on the tax rate, essentially in all of these taxable years, I'm at 24%, right? Because between my federal taxes on the 401k withdrawal, which I'm forced to make, and then ultimately the amount of my Social Security that's taxable, it puts me in that higher tax bracket, right? So when we are thinking about this 401k, you should think deeply about when you take this money out, right? So, a lot of people will argue, and I'm going to show you why I'm going to argue this, right? Is I am on, if I am on, if I'm 62 and I'm retired and I have big dollars in my 401k, I would rather take that money out when I'm at the 12% tax rate, right? I don't think I'm going to be able to do it at the 10%, but I'd rather start pulling that money out when I'm at the 12%. Right? I save half of my taxes, 50% of my taxes if I do that. And if I delay, so I'm getting 12%, right? And if I delay, I'm paying 12%. If I delay going on to Social Security till I'm 70, and I'm pulling money out of my 401k at 62, which I'm allowed to do. And I do that all the way up until I'm age 70. For those 6 years, I can pull that money out at 12%, which is a good deal for me, right? And by the way, my Social Security payment is going up by 24% because I waited. Actually, it's going up by more than that because if I'd gone on 62, it would have been 30% less. It would have been around 1750, and it'll go up to like $3,200. So I'm making money on my Social Security that I wasn't going to make, and I'm paying less taxes on the withdrawals that I'm making, and my balance is going down in a good way, so that when I am forced to take money out, I'm not going to be, and I get pushed into this 22 or 24% tax burden. I'm going to be paying less because I would have taken some of that money out. All right. So, think carefully about the staging. We like to hold on to things when we get older because we know how hard it was to make this money, right? But, I want you to think a little bit about tax rate, about when you withdraw and when you go in Social Security. Those three things need to work together to make that decision. If you don't kind of think about all three of those, you're going to get yourself into a situation where, you're going to pay a lot in taxes and you're literally just giving your money away.